Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. Today is the 18th of October, 2006, and we are in John Ferraro Council Chambers here on the third floor of City Hall in room 340. We meet here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m., except for the first Friday of the month, in which we meet at Van Nuys City Hall, and we invite members of the public to join us out in the Valley on that first Friday of the month. We invite anybody here to our general council meetings to give public comment. For general public comment, or also on items which have been agendized for public comment. And you can always read our agendas here in council chambers through the city clerk's office or by accessing them online at lacity.org. Each of these meetings is broadcast live on Channel 35 through our city's cable system, LA City View, and we are rebroadcast in the evening on a tape. And we also can be caught on the internet through our city's homepage, again at www.lacity.org, where there's live streaming video of council meetings. And there's a wealth of information at the city's homepage on your elected officials, city departments, and critical city services to improve your life and the quality of life in Los Angeles. You can also call in and listen to our council meetings and our committee meetings through Council Phone, which is available by calling 213-621-CITY. As well as being able to testify here live in person when we are meeting in City Hall, you can always go to Van Nuys City Hall to testify via remote, and we are able to hear your testimony there in council chambers if that is closer to where you live. We have 15 members of the City Council, 2/3 or 10 members constitutes a quorum, and right now we have Councilmember LaBonge, Councilmember Parks, Councilmember Perry, Councilmember Rosendahl, Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Wesson, and myself here. We are awaiting 3 more members. We are waiting for council. Thank you. We have Councilmember Weiss here too. So we're just awaiting Councilmember Reyes. And if Councilmember Reyes would make his way down, and then we also are waiting Councilmember Gruhl and Hahn, who are expected to arrive a little bit late, and Councilmember Cardenas, if you'll make your way down. Councilmember Cardenas is also expected. And as soon as we have 10 members, we will begin the meeting. Thank you.
Mr. President, we waiting
Yes,
for
Mr. LaBonge?
I just wanted to say it's because it's a very positive thing. Chuck Berry is 80 today, and as we wait for the quorum here, if we could play a little Chuck Berry, if that's okay. Good. I know.
is a final quorum call. Councilmember Cardin, if you'll please join us. We have 9 members. If we don't get a 10th member in the next few minutes, we will adjourn this meeting. So one last quorum call. We'll wait a couple minutes, and if not, we'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Cardenas, Gruel, Hahn, Weezer, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Westenstein, Garcetti. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
First order of business, please.
Is approval of the minutes.
Mr. Cardenas moves, Mr. Smith seconds. If there's no objection, so ordered.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Weiss moves and Mr. Park seconds. If there's no objection, those two will be approved. Next
Mr.
order of
President,
business.
do you wish to take public comment at this time?
Let's run through the agenda first.
On the regular agenda, item 1 is a conditional use appeal, and the applicant requests a continuance to November 15th.
Okay, colleagues, the applicant on number 1 has asked for a continuance till the 15th of November. If there's no objection, that will be continued. Next item.
Item 2 is also an appeal, and the applicant consents to a continuance to October 31st.
Okay, if there's no objection on continuing number 2 as well to the 31st of this month, so ordered. Next items, please.
Items 3 through 11 are items for which public hearings have been held.
Okay. Colleagues, any specials 3 through 11? I'll call 11 special for Ms. Gruel. Any other specials? 3 through 10? Yes, Mr. Weiss?
Yeah, item 9 and I think item 14, which you haven't called yet, is the proper companion.
Okay. I'll call 9 special for
Special,
Mr. Weiss, and when we get to the next one, I'll make sure we pull that off as well for Mr. Weiss. Any other specials, colleagues? If not, let's open the roll on the balance. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Rosendahl, did you have a special?
23, but we're not there yet.
Okay. Let's open the roll on the balance of those, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Items 12 through 49 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration, and there are a number of cards on
Okay.
items.
Hold on, Mr. Parks, which number forthwith?
4.
Number 4. All right, if there's no objection, we'll send 4 forthwith. And we have cards in on which items?
12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 28, 31, and that's it.
All right. Mr. City Attorney, will you please read our public comment reminder at the outset?
Thank you, Mr. President. To further the orderly process of the meeting in a timely manner, and thus avoid the possible loss of a quorum, if a member of the public wishes to speak on more than one item, he or she shall limit his or her remarks to a total of 6 minutes per meeting, unless council grants additional time by majority vote. A member of the public may allocate time between items in 1-minute increments. Members of the public speaking on a particular item shall constrain their remarks to that item or be ruled out of order.
Thank you. Colleagues, any specials on the remaining items?
21.
All right.
Mr. President,
Yes.
do you understand there are substitute motions that should be coming around on items 35 and 36? We do not have those just yet.
Okay. We'll hold 35 and 36 special. We'll call those other ones special for cards from the public. Any other special items, colleagues? If not, let's open the roll on the balance, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
Okay, those are approved. And we have the, is that the end of the regular meeting?
That is the end of the
Let's
regular meeting.
Call roll on the special meeting, please.
Cardenas, Gruel, Han, Weezer, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Berry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Westenstein, Garcetti, 10 members present and a quorum.
Okay, first item.
It is a one-item agenda. It's an item for which public hearing has been held, and Housing Committee has submitted its report.
Okay, anybody wishing to call number one from the special meeting? Special? If not, let's open the roll on that, close the roll, and tabulate the vote. We've already had a public
10
hearing on
ayes.
this. All right, that is approved.
Forthwith, Mr. President.
If there's no objection, that will be sent forthwith. All right. That takes us back to the regular meeting, and we can go back to that for public comment, please. And our first speaker will be Zuma Dog.
Quiet down, guys. Quiet down. Quiet down. Yeah, a little peace and quiet, y'all. For my speech, first of all, you know Zuma Dog promotes literacy. This ain't no sign or banner or placard, y'all. It's the newspaper, Daily News, y'all. Very excellent reporting. Kerry Kavanaugh, you heard Zuma Dog speak out about Prop H. It's on the November ballot, like H&R Block, H&R Puff and stuff. All you need to remember is to be informed on H&R, y'all. So let's catch up. Headlines, ZLI Daily News. Kerry Kavanaugh says, special interest bonanza, y'all. Developers, banks, real estate investors, and insurance companies that contributed more than $2 million to bankroll Proposition H. You should call it Preparation H. It's on the November 7th ballot. It's quickly becoming the most expensive ballot measure in campaign city history. And if H passes, developers' special interests stand to gain hundreds of millions of dollars in government money. Wonder why special interests are donating so much money? Not because they have their own best interests at heart. Many major contributors said Tuesday they're donating to Prop H because they want to help the city, not because they want to benefit from the construction boom. So they say they don't want to benefit. Leave the comedy to Zuma Dog. Still got another minute, y'all, and I hate to bring this up, but it is relevant. It's not just National Enquirer gossip. I got to give equal time to the LA Times election season. Okay, we had the president of the ethics committee pay money to city council elections, and the president of the ethics committee is not supposed to do that. It says, by the way, Tom Brokaw on his final broadcast said it ain't the questions that bring down the politicians, it's the answers. And the response was, well, gee, my wife just said sign here and I didn't know what the check was for. Well, first of all, if that's true, that's even worse, because why do we got the president of the Ethics Commission signing checks he doesn't know about? I would have said a much better thing. Well, hey, my son was running for re-election and the father was trying to help out his son. He couldn't help himself. That's a lot more warm and fuzzy and a lot better political spin. That's what Zuma Dog would have said, but he tried to put it out. That's terrible. Anyway, it says right here, ethics commissions, especially the president of the Ethics Commission, are prohibited from making campaign contributions. That's why I say you shouldn't re-elect city council and Proposition R.
Our next speaker is Butch Johnson, and then John Macara, or Macara.
I believe the Bradley landfill is in violation of the city zone variance. The height has exceeded the permitted 1,010 feet above mean sea level. As you know, Waste Management has applied to increase the height an additional 43 feet for no other reason than to make huge sums of money. I sure hope none of that is seeped into City Hall. We've sure had enough of that. The draft EIR stated the height increase would be less than significant. It would not change it or block the views. I made a report disclosing all of the deception in that draft EIR and showing all of the thousands of view homes would be affected if the height were increased. I hand-delivered a copy of that to Council Office 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. There are at least 4 other permitted and operating recycling stations in the immediate area that are planning expansion along with Waste Management. I see no reason why this company needs such a large recycling station, and certainly not increase the height of the dump and negatively impact the property values of thousands of homes between now and the expiration of the zone variance in April of 2007. I commend the mayor for sticking to his campaign promise to not allow the expansion of landfill. I sure hope Councilman Cardenas will stick to his. His campaign literature stated, and I quote, "I am firmly opposed to any expansion of the Bradley landfill, and as your council member, I will fight this proposed expansion." I sure hope that's not a lie.
Thank you very much. John Macara, or Macara? Is John Macara? And then Estela Lopez will be next after that.
My name is John Macara, and I own house.
and I have on Social Security $950. Now, when that thing passed by what you guys have in this book, I be first want to apply for low-income housing because you get me out of the house. I have a problem right now to meet my obligations, taxes, insurance, and utilities. I can hardly stretch my penny now. When that thing go by, you're gonna slap me with the taxes that I won't be able to keep up. Now, this, your proposition is not that you're gonna help poor people. You're just gonna collect them from all over the world, they're gonna come here. And you're gonna slap this whole proposition on the property, which property owners have no use for, neither I. So gentlemen, think this, you not help poor people. You're gonna create poor people, which gonna be worse than is because first pay for $1 billion on our property, second thing maintenance. Those people they be housing that, they're not gonna work. See, there's plenty work for them. The Mexican border is closed, send them there, pick up tomato and potato and so on. There's work, but they don't wanna work. See, and you feel sorry for them, but you don't feel sorry for me that I have to think of where I get money, pay taxes on it. So you not help poor people, you create poor people. And so where I gonna go if I won't be able to pay it? You're gonna confiscate my house, throw me on the street, and sell for tax my house to somebody else.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up. We appreciate your public comment today. Our next speaker for general public comment is Estela Lopez, and after Estela Lopez will be Gordon Michael Migo.
Council members, thank you very much. I'm Estela Lopez, the Executive Director of the Central City East Association. I'm here this morning to speak to you at public comment because we need your help. Central City East is desperately in need of support from the City of Los Angeles. As all of you know, the Safer Cities Initiative was started a few weeks ago. And personnel from the police department and the city attorney's office are working very diligently to achieve the objectives of the Safer Cities Initiative. Where we are falling short, dangerously short, is in the services being provided by sanitation and street services. And I'm not coming to you before we went to them and expressed this problem. The piles of garbage that are being left behind by folks who are either entering shelter or recovery services or are arrested have grown to enormous proportions. These are things that are disease-ridden. We're talking about piles of clothes covered with excrement, syringes, vomit. It is rifled through by other transients who come afterwards. It is strewn throughout the area. You know this is a food service area, a food business area. I'm getting calls by the hour about this trash. We need your help. It is also encouraging illegal dumping. I have photos here of other places, restaurants, even tires are now being brought to Central City East and dumped there. This is broken windows in reverse. I've asked the police department to be here today in case you have any questions so that they can tell you exactly the extent of the problem. Please, we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Berry?
Mr. President, if you would allow Captain Wakefield and Sergeant Shaw, since they're city employees, if we could allow them to just sit at the center table, would that be all right?
I think because it's not been agendized as a formal matter before us, I mean, both of them could give public comment, but I would ask the city attorney whether that would be in accordance with the Brown Act.
Only a brief comment on a non-agenda item may be engaged in. Other than that, it would have to be agendized for a separate meeting.
Okay. Well, I'll have to leave it to their discretion if they want to speak today and or not.
Yeah. And we can certainly work to agendize something if you'd like to do that too, Ms. Perry. Okay. If you just identify yourself for the record, please.
Jody Wakefield. I'm the commanding officer for Central Patrol. And just real briefly, Safer City Initiative, the first and foremost goal is for a cleaner and safer environment. We're doing a very good job on the law enforcement aspect when it comes to illegal activity out there in Skid Row. However, the trash has become a huge problem and an eyesore, and we absolutely need some assistance in this case. We are meeting with Public Works and Street Services, but without this enhancement part of the plan, it's going to be very difficult to fulfill our mission when it comes to cleaning up and making it a better environment in Skid Row. So I absolutely concur with Estela Lopez in the fact that we have a problem down there with the amount of trash, and it has increased significantly in the last month and a half. So anything that the City Council can do to help would be appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your testimony. Our next speaker is Gordon Michael Migo.
Okay, how much time do I have here?
2 minutes, and the clock is right in front of you, so you can follow along.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Gordon Michael Migo. My address is 4535 West 141st Street. I'm a native and resident of Hawthorne. I live in the same house that my parents had built in 1947 on a nearly empty plot of land, which at the time had a cow, a few chickens, and other assorted critters. I'm from a family of 8, 2 sons, 4 daughters, and am the third oldest, having been born on October the 8th, 1952. Growing up in a large family in a 3-bedroom house, I and the other children learned how to share with and care about each other. And competition for the only bathroom in the house taught us the art of compromise. In education, I attended all the local schools in the South Bay. I'm a Lusengo High School graduate, class of 1970, El Camino College, class of 1974, with a major towards engineering. And due to family situation and financial constraints, was not able to attend a 4-year university. Went on to working into the aerospace industry in the mid-70s, worked for Northrop Corporation, Rockwell, McDonnell Douglas, and so forth. And during my college years, in between aerospace jobs and for a time afterwards, I worked as a salesperson in a variety of businesses in the South Bay area of LA County. And in the mid-1990s, I and other residents of the city of Hawthorne succeeded in stopping the Los Angeles World Airports from taking over our city's airport, which they wanted to use transfer the commuter jet airlines from LAX Airport. And I've worked with LAX Expansion No, RSAC, and other groups up until this present day in time to oppose it. I am from a mixed political background. My father was a Democrat. My mother was a Republican. Our family engaged in lively discussions on a wide variety of subjects, but we respected each other's opinion and learned a lot in the process. So therefore, I understand all sides of the debate, and it has served me well over the years. If I were elected official in government, I would make decisions to support or reject legislation based upon the following criteria: U.S. Constitution, Bill of Rights, moral and ethical values, basic common sense, and the needs of we the people. In the upcoming general election, November 7, 2006, I am a candidate for U.S. Congress, the House of Representatives, in the 35th District, which encompasses Hawthorne, Inglewood, Lawndale, Gardena, Westchester, parts of South Los Angeles, and other areas. I ask those U.S. citizens in the 35th District to hire me as their employee who will represent their interest, and you can do so by casting.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. Our next speaker is Donna Doherty, and then we'll go out to the Valley for Bruce Darien. Ms. Doherty?
Good morning, everybody. I want to say thank you to Tom LaBonge for all of the good tours to the observatory. I do want to remind everybody that there's something called universal design. I think I've talked about it before, and I hope everybody's listening to this. Excuse me. Hello. Thank you to the people out in the public.
We just had a technical difficulty with the Valley, but please continue.
I want to thank the people out in the public who are coming up to me and saying, "Where were you?" thank you very much for noticing that I might not have been here, because we're trying to find out a way that we can make this city proud of that place up there. I'm not proud when I go there and I find the front 4 doors that Colonel Griffith gave us to that place. They're blocked by city employees. So we can't go in there. The sign's been changed where there was a little, the disabled sign and a little thing going up like that. I made the statement to somebody the other day, last week or so, about that it was discriminatory, but that's the entrance that we were told disabled would go into 2 years ago, the one door on the back side of the West Wing, and now that's where 10,000 people a day will go in, not in the front 4 doors. This is wrong. We need to go back and take another look. We've delayed for 2 solid years. Why can't we delay at least until Christmas? Why can't we find an alternative design for the front entrance? Why is it that that front entrance was totally redone? And I hate to say it, but we are so out of compliance. This is everything at the front entrance is smack in line for the biggest lawsuit against this city that you will see in years. And I really am sorry to say that, because it shouldn't happen. If you want all of the top equipment, you want to spend $93 million and have the top equipment in that planetarium, why not the top equipment for the people that are coming to see you?
Thank you, Ms. Doherty.
Thank you very much.
Bruce Darian out in the Valley will be our next speaker, out in Van Nuys City Hall. Welcome, Mr. Darian. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, City Council. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the council this morning and also before the public. I've been here numerous times. The focus of my discussion has been on public contracting and fraud, the illegal expenses of government public monies to wrongful contractors. What I want to focus on this morning is whether or not there's been a manipulation, as in the public contracting I've been talking about at the Malibu Pier, and that of the gas prices, and whether that has any relation to the elections and who has manipulated it. Why did it go up? Was that artificial, or was it artificial that's coming down? We saw manipulation in pricing with the energy crisis in California, which affected millions of people and billions of dollars, which we have not recouped that money. And has this been going on with the gas situation? The Malibu Pier continues to be sandbagged in opening it as a facility for all Californians. It's a historic landmark. It was sandbagged in the construction. It was manipulated in the payroll and the quantities and types of materials. And this goes on across the board. It does not stop at Malibu Beach in the County of Los Angeles for the Department of Parks and Recreation, a California historic landmark. It goes here deep, ingrained into the city of Los Angeles. It goes to the County of Los Angeles. It goes to the state of California, and it goes into the federal government in the acquisition in contracts. This problem is widespread, and it takes people to come forward, and we as a people are coming forward. We now recognize that Congress, with the situation with Congressman Foley, and last year with Congressman Cunningham, and down the line, that these people, as none of us are above the law, we are to be held accountable to the law, and the people are now coming forward and doing something. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Arnold Sachs is our next speaker here in Chambers, and then Matt Dowd will be after him.
Good morning, council members. Thank you very much. I just wanted to make some comments on a meeting that was held on one of the council meetings that was held last week on Wednesday the 11th. During that meeting, I believe at the end of the meeting, Councilman Parks added an item to the agenda regarding the billboard contract for the airport, because there was not going to be a meeting on the 13th due to the lack of a quorum. And as a matter of fact, I believe the people who represented the billboard company were in the audience, so that would mean that there was some sort of process that was done that allowed them to be contacted to be here so that they could take care of their business instead of showing up on Friday and not having a meeting. Along those lines, on Tuesday, there was an article in the LA Times regarding a a court case brought by limited liability corporations against the state of California, in which the limited liability corporations won a case, in which the state of California was illegally collecting taxes. And if this is not overturned, then the state budget, which stands at $5 billion deficit right now, might increase by 30%. Why these two items are related is, well, today there was a limited liability item on the agenda, but on Wednesday, item 46 presented to the City Council was an agreement with 1601 North Vines Limited Liability. And I was wondering if the city attorney can bring together a company early for a meeting in front of City Hall. Why can't it do the same? Why can't it
Thank you, sir.
let this?
I can ask you to conclude. Thank you. Appreciate it. Matt Dowd is our next speaker, and then Michael Hunt will be after that.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome to the top 10, LA City Hall today. Number 10, Channel 35. Dave Brown is the camera operator. He's the one giving me such a wide angle. He can zoom in. If you're going to give us a wide, get the deputy chief here, Earl Pasinger, the sensible future of LAPD. So give me a zoom now. Number 9. I'm from Venice Beach. Bill Rosenthal's district. I play guitar and sell $1 incense. That's now a federal case. Incense on Venice Beach is now a federal case. That's number 9. Number 8, Rocky. I called on him to resign. He's the one who's responsible. First we wanted you to force him, but now you're doing it the sly way. Why don't you just sack him? Number 7, Proposition H. Maybe it's not a bad deal if it only costs $2 billion to get $5 billion. So, it's who's paying for the $5 billion. That's probably the sore point here. Okay, number 6, Gil Garcetti. Time to resign. Don't just take a $1,500 fine, boys. Some special interest will reimburse that in like 5 seconds flat. Number 5, Jan Perry was terrible yesterday as ad hoc, whatever you call that, leaning on the arms with complete disdain. Public comment's part of the process. It validates everything here. So don't treat people like they don't matter. And she said it was my 3rd warning, and it was actually my 1st for whatever that was for. And she talked to the city attorney and called him the city clerk. Number 4, Janice. That's the argument for term extension, lengthening. That's the only argument. Janice Hahn. She ought to be here for another 4 years. She gets the hooty-hoo of the day. Head of the board of
Thank you very much.
Referred powers.
Michael Hunt is our next
And I got a couple
speaker.
more to go, and they are the real important ones.
Mr. Hunt?
Wow.
Hey, you got a couple more to go? You want to borrow some of my time? Hey, Mr. Eric Garcetti, can he borrow some of my time? He said he got a couple more.
Sorry, we can't lend time, but go ahead, Mr. Hunt. 2 minutes is all yours.
Woo! Oh, man, federal court for incense and shea butter bill. Isn't that something, man? We've been out of work for 6 months. It comes back to family values. You offered us the dance class. You offered us the free benches in the park. You didn't offer us no jobs, though. We told you Rocky Dale got to go. We brought you that. You guys finally listened to us, and now you guys, we see it in the newspaper that you guys voted him out. Everything that we say probably comes true here. I think that if you guys get off your butts and really start listening to what we're saying about jobs, future, and what's going on, Miss Perry, you got a lot of trash to get rid of. It's a lot of homeless people down there that need jobs. I think that's a good way to combat it. I say it's not a police matter, it's a human issue. I think that homeless could use a few bucks in their pockets. That would be awfully, awfully nice. I think that the Central Division or the Central Station needs to really go over their homeless policy, because when you go in the station, they don't offer the services that they say they do. Went down there and investigated, so I know that. Yes, it's a big tragedy, Bill. When the federal lawsuit comes back and they tell you that that we are right about what we were doing and things like that. Even Carol Sobel was trying to get on our bandwagon as well because they know it's getting ready to come back. But the issue here is at hand. You still signed the bill to ban African Americans from working at 72%. Of unemployment. You say that, but it still means something to us. And big up to Ms. Hahn. It looks like you're on the right track.
Our next speaker is Jose Aguilar. We have our last speaker for public comment today.
Hello, Mr. Garcetti. I'm here because, I'm very concerned with the $40 billion in bonds that are in all these propositions and all the situations that these homeowners, especially senior citizens, could find themselves in being assessed with all these bond monies. There's too much bond money here. Proposition H is basically wrong because it's $40 for every $100,000 of property value. And you put this along with the other bonds, it's too much. It'll probably go up between $200 to $500 to $1,000 on property taxes, and we can't afford this right now. What I would like for the public to understand is we need to provide infrastructure, we need to provide parks, we need to provide police. I'm still waiting for the 1,000 police officers. We need to provide for the infrastructure first before we facilitate any density. Because if you don't do that, it's just basically a boondoggle for the developers. It's wrong for our community. So please, Mr. Garcetti, consider providing the infrastructure first, parks, police, after-school programs. Provide for the infrastructure, then go create your housing. That's the only way to go about it. There's you're trying to convert areas into Pico Union. You're trying to warehouse people. You're trying to create Section 8 developments in our communities. We can't afford them right now. We need the infrastructure first. We need to provide for parks. We need to provide for the infrastructure, police, and everything else that goes along with it. I also heard a rumor that First and Soto is going to be up for eminent domain by the MTA. I don't know. I heard this rumor from the business interests there. I would like to put the City Council on notice that you need to provide adequate notice to the public, including the project area committees, if you have any intentions of doing any eminent domain projects on First and Soto. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. That closes our general public comment. If we can go through the agenda, starting with number 9. And Mr. Weiss, did you want to take 9 and 14 together?
Yes, Mr.
Okay.
President.
We do have 9, the public hearing's been held, but we do have some cards on that, and 14 it has not, and we have cards on that as well. Do you want to just go through the public hearing first?
Yeah, I'd like to do that, but just to get things started, I'd have to ask Chief Paysinger, and also we have Juliet Leftwich come forward and sit, and then we go through the public comment cards. I just want to introduce to you, colleagues, what this item is. It is an ordinance that has gone through public safety that would make it a crime to fail to report to the LAPD the theft or loss of a firearm. Now, when you say it like that, it sounds more draconian and perhaps more unreasonable than it actually is. What this is an effort to get at the heart of the straw purchaser phenomenon which plagues our cities. There are so many individuals who are not permitted under the law to buy weapons, and there's so many individuals who, for their own reasons, don't want to literally have their fingerprints on the purchase of a weapon, that they will have other individuals buy the weapons for them and then give them the weapons to use in a crime. At the end of the day, when the police roll up and do the investigation and they go to the source, they go to the registered owner, the person who purchased that firearm, the person will just throw up their hands and say, "What, me worry? I must have lost that gun. That gun was stolen from me some time ago." And at that point, the police don't have an investigative or a legal tool or a legal hook to use with those people. This will give the police the tools to leverage those people who are the source of so much of the violence in our cities. And that's what this is about. Why don't we call the public comment cards, and then we'll ask Chief Paysinger and Juliet Leftwich to discuss it in greater detail.
Okay, Mr. Weiss, we have 7 cards. Would you like to set 2 minutes apiece or 1 minute apiece, or 2 minutes apiece? Okay. Juliet, if you'd like to come forward. Oh, she's going to be, okay, we'll keep that one separate. Ron Cole, you'd like to come forward. Welcome to City Council, sir. You have 2 minutes to address the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. My name is Ron Cole. I'm the president of volunteer organization called Project Accountability. We work very closely with LAPD, Captain Gannon out of 77 Division, along with the LA City Attorney's Office, and our whole focus is to look for the root causes and solutions, strategic solutions to reducing gang activity and gang violence. Within our city, we have identified, and stats show that there's 5,603 shots that are fired throughout Los Angeles City. 2,227 individuals have been hit by that gunfire. Over 400 of those individuals die. We all hear some of the tragedies that are coming over the airways as innocent bystanders and peoples in our communities who are being subjected to the violence that are going on a daily basis. Some of the things that we notice are that there are truancy issues which allow kids to be on the streets. We are attempting to address those issues. Some of the things that we have done is work with Bright Future, which is a program initiated by LA City and LA School District to basically track kids to see that they are in school. This initiative is a reasonable initiative. It makes sense. Anything that we can do to reduce the violence that are within our city, we should do it. And the question is, from us and the individuals in the community, what can we do with the resources that we have within this city to bring about solutions for our communities? We did a survey around John Muir Middle School, 2-block radius, and it came back that their concern, the community's concern, was number 1, gang violence, number 2, graffiti, number 3, crime. So with that, we definitely recommend the passage of this bill.
Thank you very much. Suzanne Verrier is our next speaker. 2 minutes. Welcome to City Council. You have 2 minutes to address us. Thank you.
My name is Suzanne Verge. I'm the president of the Los Angeles chapter of the Million Mile March, and I also represent, on behalf of Kay Holman, the San Fernando Valley chapter of the Million Mile March. And our organization is dedicated to preventing gun violence and also representing the victims and the survivors of gun violence. I just want to encourage the council to support this going forward with the ordinance. As a survivor, I lost my brother to gun violence, and I don't want anybody else or any other family to suffer the way I have and other members of my chapter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Verge, excuse me. Devin Cotter is our next speaker. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm here on behalf of Women Against Gun Violence. We work to prevent gun violence through education, advocacy, and community mobilization. This ordinance is an extremely important ordinance, both to stop the straw buyers, but also to reinforce responsible gun ownership. If you have to report a car crash, you should have to report losing a deadly weapon. A responsible gun owner should know where their weapon is. It is not an inordinate task to locate your weapon and make sure that it's still in your possession. Having 48 hours to report this to the police is a simple task, and the small amount of time it would take to report a missing weapon is a small price to pay to keep these weapons out of the hands of criminals and to notify the police when one of these weapons goes missing. The straw buyer problem is a huge problem for many communities throughout this country. And as Jack Weiss pointed out, Councilmember Weiss, forgive me, these people are buying guns because they can legally buy guns, and then you give them to criminals. But give really isn't the appropriate word. They sell them to criminals. This is a huge business, and they are able to go unprosecuted because there's no law against losing or claiming to have lost a weapon. We are giving these criminals a protection that very few other criminals provide, and that is just something that needs to stop. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Anne Reese Lane will be our next speaker. Welcome, Ann.
Good morning, President Garcetti and members of the council.
It's been a while since I've been here, but almost 14 years ago, when I left as a member of the Los Angeles Police Commission, I started an organization called Women Against Gun Violence. And over the years, the City Council has passed landmark legislation. We were one of the first cities to ban assault weapons. We came up with the idea of requiring gun sellers to sell only one gun a month to potential buyers. We banned 50 caliber assault rifles and Saturday night specials. I'm here today to ask that you continue that leadership in passing an ordinance that Councilmember Weiss has proposed, which has already been passed by Oakland, Berkeley, and San Francisco, and hopefully will lead all the cities in California to require that lost or stolen guns be reported to their local police departments. The way things have worked in the past is that local communities pass these ordinances and build a groundswell of support, which is then translated into interest in the California legislature for passing a measure statewide. That's my hope, but it should begin today by the council passing this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Matt Dowd. And then Arnold Sachs will be next after that.
Thank you very much. Okay, a gun ordinance. Now there's an ordinance, all right, reporting the theft or loss of a firearm, but I want to point out just a couple of things, that there's kind of two groups of people hanging out around here. The law-abiding people who are going to abide by the ordinance, and the criminals, career criminals, multiple offenders, in and out of jails. You're probably not going to get them with this kind of thing. And they're the ones who are out there doing all the damage. So once again, there is an old saying, it's not the guns that kill people, it's the people that kill people. And it's people before profit too, Mr. Rosendahl. Thank you. I remember you said that one.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Arnold Sachs.
Very quickly, I'd like to thank the chief of police for showing up and putting the council members in their chairs. This will be, I believe, a no-brainer, 11-0 vote in favor of this item. But everybody's here. There'll be no non-votes. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Mr. Hunt, you had cards for number 9 and 14, but we're taking them together, so if you want to just come and speak on both of them at once.
Yeah, here's what we're going to do. We're going to call for a unanimous vote. I think here that if we provide 4,000 jobs instead of 4,000 bullets, we might have something. Gangs would be off the street because they would be working. I think that's the solution. That's always been my solution. I think that if you're a responsible gun toter, that if your gun is stolen or lost, you should report it immediately anyway. That's just my feelings. But the more responsible, I heard 2,000 people get shot with 4,000 bullets. Man, I wish we can get 4,000 jobs for the gang members. I think that would make more sense, you know, and responsible gun toters report their guns stolen or lost immediately.
Thank you. That closes public comment. Mr. Weiss, and then we have Mr. Reyes and Mr. Smith to follow that. Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Labange, if you'd like to make the introduction this morning.
Special guest, if you'd all please rise, from the Ukraine there, of our guests from the Wilshire Rotary. These members here are observing our council and observing the public comment, which was so impressive to them. When I explained that 3 months ago or so, the former head of the government, Mikhail Gorbachev, spoke from that same very microphone, they were very impressed. So please give them a big round of applause and welcome to Los Angeles City Hall.
Thank you very much, Mr.
President.
Labange.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
Thank you for the introduction and welcome to City Hall. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank the advocates who spoke today and who've participated not just in the committee hearings, but in the crafting of this legislation as well. And I also want to note, colleagues, for the record, that when we heard this matter in public safety, we had a couple of trauma doctors from California Hospital who came and testified about the need for more effective gun legislation in the city of Los Angeles. They were supposed to be here this morning, but as they were on their way out of the hospital to come to council, a trauma case came in, and as they were walking out the door, and they couldn't be here with us. I'd like to ask Chief Paysinger to address this issue as the LAPD sees it, and then I'd like to ask Juliet Leftwich to explain what her organization does, and to talk a little bit about the legal underpinnings for this measure and how it's withstood scrutiny in other places. Chief Paysinger, you're up.
Thank you, Councilmember Weiss, Council President, members of the council. I'm Earl Paysinger, the Director of Office of Operations for the Los Angeles Police Department. I'm joined here today by Lieutenant Steve Nielsen, the officer in charge of the gun unit. Pleased to be here today to add the department's voice to what we believe is not only smart legislation, intelligent legislation, municipal legislation, but timely legislation, something that's long overdue. Suffice it to say that last year the Los Angeles Police Department recovered over 6,600 weapons. This year so far, year to date, it's been 4,800 weapons. Roughly, we're talking about over 10,000 guns that we have seized in various arrests and detention throughout the city of Los Angeles. One gun that harms a life, one gun that takes a life, one gun that destroys a life or a family or future is one too many. And I think this gives us an opportunity. This legislation, I would hasten to add, is not necessarily the final answer, but it's a powerful tool in the arsenal that we need, that the department needs, and also that the public needs, to draw a line of demarcation against those who would want to commit acts of inhumanity against our public. This allows us the opportunity, like was said by the council member, for us to identify those folks who own weapons and then track them through the investigative process, and gives us an opportunity to bring closure to some of the very violent crimes, the very violent acts that are perpetrated against the good people in our community. I'd like to relinquish my chair for just a moment to Lieutenant Nielsen and give you an opportunity to hear his voice. He sees many of these crimes occur on a very, very regular basis, him being the OIC of the gun unit, and I think he would add just a perspective on this important piece of legislation.
In my business here in the gun section,
Can you move the microphone just a little closer? Thank you.
we do a lot of investigations where we do track firearms, and very routinely we get to the point where to the buyer of the gun who does not have it anymore, and we have no further recourse in regards to what to do in our investigation. A lot of our what we call our kitchen dealers are the people who sell guns out of their back door, and they do it for a living, and they do it one gun at a time. And this type of a ordinance will enable us to put these type of people out of business, because not only will it stop them from this thing, but it also will show a pattern. You know, somebody that continually loses their gun or continually has to report it stolen is somebody that you want to look at as well. So it gives us another tool that way as well in order to see who's distributing these firearms out to the public and getting them into the hands of the criminal.
Mr. President, may I also add this one last thought? Often in presentations to community groups and people that I just see in passing, sometimes literally on the street, the public always asks this one question when we petition them for their help. They ask, what do you want us to do? And sometimes from my chair, it's difficult to articulate, you know, the small things that they can do to help make their community safer. There have been occasions where I've given them the benefit of my best counsel and asked them to read to their children, or when they get in their car and taking their children to school, to turn the radio off and listen to them and have that important dialogue with their kids. This is one more thing that they can do that doesn't cost them anything. Those that own guns and those that know others who own guns, all they need to do is register them when those guns are lost or stolen. It's a simple, very elementary, fundamental act that we can all engage in to make our communities more healthy.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything?
Good morning. My name is Juliet Leftwich, and I'm Senior Counsel with Legal Community Against Violence, a national law center formed in the wake of the 101 California Street assault weapon massacre, which took place in California. We provide free legal assistance to state and local governments seeking to adopt or to defend gun violence prevention laws. We also track all federal and all state and all local gun laws in California. I'm here today to offer our support with respect to the ordinance under consideration. That ordinance has 3 goals: to facilitate the return of lost or stolen firearms, to help reduce gun trafficking, and to increase gun owner responsibility and accountability. State law already requires that gun dealers and gun manufacturers report lost or stolen firearms. Given the incredible lethality of firearms, it only makes sense to impose this reporting requirement on individuals as well. As was mentioned earlier, laws requiring this reporting have been adopted in San Francisco and Oakland and in Berkeley. Similar laws are also in effect in New York, Ohio, Rhode Island, Michigan, and Washington, D.C. Governor Schwarzenegger a few weeks ago vetoed a state bill, SB 59, by Senator Lowenthal, which also would have required reporting. This was a much weaker bill, however, than what's under consideration today, because it only would have applied to new handgun owners. In his veto message, Governor Schwarzenegger echoed some of the NRA arguments which are asserted in opposition to this type of measure. He said, for example, that it would simply punish victims and that they shouldn't be punished. But you could make the same argument about the requirement for firearms dealers or firearms manufacturers. As was mentioned earlier, there's also a state law requiring people who are involved in serious automobile accidents to report to that incident to the DMV, regardless of whether they were the victim or not. We expect another and hopefully stronger bill to be introduced in the legislature next year, but in the interim, it's critical that local governments act in this area. In response to your question, Councilmember Weiss, about legal challenges, I am unaware of any legal challenges to this type of measure. I think the city is on firm legal ground here. The only suggestion that we would have here would be that the city consider an educational campaign to get the word out about this law if it is adopted. One thing you could consider would be a requirement that firearms dealers post this law on their premises. Another option would be perhaps you could get a list of handgun owners from the State Department of Justice. There is no list currently of long gun owners because those lists are destroyed. If you obtain that list, you may be able to write letters to those handgun owners advising them that they have a duty to report lost or stolen firearms. You could also take that opportunity to advise them of other gun laws, such as those that require private sales to go through gun dealers.
I think those are strong suggestions, and we've already started discussions with the LAPD about just that, what you suggested, the educational component of it, and I'm confident that we'll go ahead and do that. But the fundamental point to make in this regard is, at the end of the day, what this law is about the cases that hit the lieutenant's desk every day. This is not about a garden variety mom and pop gun owner who, for some reason, unbeknownst to us, wakes up one morning and discovers that their gun isn't there, and otherwise is not up to anything that is problematic. This is about the hardcore trafficking in guns, which is time and time again how criminals obtain the weapons that are used violently in our communities. And that's what the cops face time and time again. We want to give them the tools, the extra tools they need to work on the cases that continue to pile up on their desks. And that's why this is so important. I just want to, and I'll stop, my clock is almost over. What Ms. Leftwich says is exactly right. When the state legislature doesn't act or can't act, or there's a veto in Sacramento, that is exactly when cities such as ours have to fill the breach. And we have to show the rest of the state that this is appropriate, that it is common sense, and then eventually we'll see laws like this passed in states throughout the country. Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank particularly the members of the committee, Mr. Reyes, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Parks, but particularly Mr. Reyes, for your advocacy in this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Mr. Reyes is our next speaker, and then Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Council President. Every once in a while, we as a body get to hear about what happens in different areas throughout the city. And I know for some of us, it is common to hear the gunshots at night. It is common to have your son or your daughter ask you, was that a shotgun or was that a rapid fire? Because that's the kind of questions that happen in my household. This is my 10-year-old and my 13-year-old. That's the type of environment that some of our cities live in, some of our neighborhoods in our city live in. I've had the fortune of visiting other districts. You hear the crickets, you hear that bird, you hear the sound of nature outside your door. You don't hear those gunshots. So for me, this particular ordinance, I want to thank Councilmember Weiss for his leadership, is important not only for those neighborhoods who have to hear not only the sounds, but you can only think about what has happened and contemplate, is someone shot, is someone hurt, is someone dead? And when you hear the sirens afterwards, then you know there was a hit. This has to be controlled because it will grow into the other areas with time. The measures that we're talking about today is very important. And so I ask you to support this, not because you don't hear it in your district, but because you can be in a position in the future to say what you did to prevent it from growing into your areas. Much like poverty, much like crime, it continues to grow. And these are the measures that we need in place to check it. One of the issues that came up during committee, and I asked the question, why is it so hard to register a gun? We register our automobiles. And people say, well, it's not the gun shooting, it's the person shooting the gun. I said, yes, but it's the person driving the car who, if not in a sober state of mind, or if reckless, can become a deadly weapon. Such are the guns. So I don't see any problem why we should not register these guns. I would wish we can be a little bit more stringent in that, regardless of whether you lost your gun or not, if you have a gun, it should be registered so that we can track it down even from that point. But I understand we have to compromise. I understand the power of the gun lobby in this state, and Governor Schwarzenegger's actions probably reflect that. But again, we're talking about human beings, we're talking about quality of life, and really the future of our kids who have to live knowing that these gunshots continue to blast throughout the night. So thank you very much, and I encourage an aye vote.
Thank you. Mr. Smith is our next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was very pleased in committee to support this ordinance. I don't think it is the solution to gun-related violence, but it's certainly an important part of that puzzle, that mosaic of trying to stop gun violence. More importantly, it gives our police department a tool to stop the people that abuse the law by saying, I didn't know the gun was stolen. This closes that loop, and it really helps our police department. So I'm very pleased to support it. I wish it was my ordinance and we could have made it the Smith-Wesson ordinance. That would have been appropriate, I think, but it wasn't. It was Mr. Weiss's idea, and I commend him for that. I do have a number of questions I was asked by Mr. Zine to ask on his behalf so that they're on the public record. And I think you've answered some of these, but let me ask them and get them on the record. He asked, what is the state law regarding reporting of lost and stolen firearms? You've already said it's on manufacturers and dealers, but not the individual. This would close that loop in the city. Are localities prohibited from making their own laws regarding lost or stolen firearms? You've said a number of cities are doing it already. So that leads to the next question, are there any provisions in our ordinance that would mean conflict with state law?
No, there are no provisions that would conflict with state law.
Okay. Will this ordinance protect the individual whose firearms was lost or stolen without their knowledge? And this question was asked in committee, and so if you can explain how a person can say, you know, it was in my lockbox, I haven't looked at it for 5 years, it's not there now, how do you deal with that?
The ordinance is written so that the individual has an obligation to report within 48 hours of the discovery, and it's only a crime if they don't report it when they knew or should have known. So it's a reasonable person standard.
Reasonable, very good, thank you. And will this ordinance protect individuals who fail to report lost or stolen gun prior to this ordinance taking effect?
This ordinance has a reporting requirement that it states that within 60 days, if someone had lost a firearm within the preceding 5 years, they need to come forward now and make that report. The City of Oakland, we were actually consulted by the City of Oakland because they have a similar requirement going back 10 years, and there was some concern that this was an invalid retroactive law. But we looked into that and concluded that although this relates to past conduct, it does not penalize past conduct, so it is not an invalid retroactive law.
Excellent. And finally, and this one kind of threw me, because we had not discussed this before, how will this ordinance hold individuals accountable who claim they threw their firearm away, as it is not illegal to throw a gun away? Is that true? It is not illegal to throw a gun away? That's in the trash.
That's correct. There's no law in the books, to my knowledge, that says that it's
Then we will be
illegal.
working on an ordinance right away to fix that, because we certainly don't want firearms in landfills or just in public trash cans. That is absurd. But I thank Mr. Zine for bringing that up, and we'll get to work on that motion right away. And again, I thank Mr. Weiss for bringing this forward in the police department. I think it's an excellent tool for you to do your job, and I'm very happy to support it. Thank you.
And I just
Thank
think
you.
it's excellent, Mr. Smith, that you're adding to your trash portfolio by...
It's part of the Renew LA plan.
Guns in landfills.
We've got Mr. Rosendahl and then Mr. Labange. Mr. Rosendahl?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was reflecting here. Obviously, it is a no-brainer for us to pass this. 38 years ago, I was with Robert Kennedy when he got assassinated in this town. We then formed a group on gun control. I spent the next year working on gun control. It is outrageous that our great nation allows such a loose interpretation of having guns. I mean, it is a lethal weapon, and obviously it should be registered, it should be recorded, and we should know all about it. This particular strategy by my colleague, Mr. Weiss, is a step in the right direction. Obviously, we're all going to support it. But I'm going to tell you this, the United States of America has to deal in a national sense with the gun issue, not just on our local level. We remember the Brady bill, and how I met with Mrs. Brady over this bill, and we have been fighting, many of us, for me, 38 years, for control of guns, and guns should be taken out of the hands of a lot of folks, and those ones you can conceal just shouldn't be. But this is great, and I'm delighted that the city is focused on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rosendahl. Mr. Labange is our next speaker.
Question. Thank you for your presentation, all of you here. What work do you do with there's 88 cities in the county. So we do this in Los Angeles City. What does Inglewood have? What does San Fernando have? What does Glendale, Pasadena have? What does Lomita have? What does Long Beach have?
On this particular topic,
Yes.
they do not address this topic, only San Francisco, Oakland, and Berkeley.
Okay, so what are we going to do about our adjacent cities in this county of Los Angeles? Do you have an association of area police chiefs, or how can we take it further? Because I see sometimes, and I have border cities, West Hollywood, Pasadena, Glendale, Burbank, in my council district area. What can we do to expand this as we pass this today?
Obviously, it's a very good point, and one that's valid. It'll be my best recommendation to the Chief of Police and to the department that this be a major topic at the California Chiefs Association's meeting. It only makes good sense to partner with other agencies along the same lines, and we're hopeful that they will follow in kind with the same
Could we make a friendly
municipal
amendment
legislation.
to the ask that this be what Chief Paysinger just spoke of, and made it an issue, a major issue? So it's not only this 88 cities in this county, but throughout the state. Is it joined too? So there's a friendly amendment. Do you have that, Mr. Clerk?
Oh, could you restate that, please?
Chief? Chief, that the Los Angeles Police Department make this a major issue in the Association of Police Agencies throughout the state of California, with specific interest in Los Angeles, Orange, Ventura, and San Bernardino counties. Okay.
Kern.
Thank you. Kern?
Thank you. If there's no objection to that.
Oh, you're good there, Earl.
That'll be accepted as a friendly recommendation, friendly amendment as a recommendation to the police department. That is our last speaker. If nobody else wishes to be heard on this, Madam Clerk, please open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you all very much for your testimony. And Mr. Weiss, you want to send forthwith? Okay, forthwith if there's no objection. Thank you very much. Next, we have item 11 from Ms. Gruhl. We called special for you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I know we have representatives from the department, if they would come to the table real quickly. Colleagues, before you today are some items relative, and maybe we'll pause for one moment if you could hold my time. Colleagues, this morning you have a number of taxi cab anti-fraud measures that are before the City Council and have gone through our taxi cab commission. I believe very strongly, as does the department, that every resident and tourist in the city is entitled to expect that when they step into a taxi cab, whether it be here in downtown Los Angeles or at the airport or in South Los Angeles, that they will receive safe, courteous, honest and efficient services. And for me, I believe, and I know all of you do, that we must have a zero tolerance policy for fraud. And there's been lots of media associated with this in the last several months. I introduced a motion and the Commission took action on that, would increase penalties for fraudulent activities, allow us to have smart meters in each of our taxi cabs that utilize GPS system, and the implementation of meters that use taint-proof receipt printing technology. And also, many of you approved the anti-bandit taxi measures recently that are helping us to facilitate our zero-tolerance policy. And so if I could just real briefly, Robert, if you would just give a little bit of the items, what kinds of new I guess it would be in the infractions that we have and some of the other things. Because before, if you were caught doing this, we didn't have it wasn't a serious crime or viewed as that. And so we've increased the penalties for this particular instance. If you could go over that.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Robert Andalone, Department of Transportation. Specifically, the department was advised of a serious problem with the taxi meter rigging. As a result of that, the department went back and looked at all the rules associated with any kind of infractions regarding taxi meter rigging, and we've eliminated any fines that are allowed in lieu of suspension, and thereby increasing the penalties directly to the drivers and or operators, so they would in essence have to sit out on the sidelines and not earn any income on those days as a penalty. We believe that that's a more stronger message that would allow for drivers to recognize the importance of this measure. We had several ad hoc committee meetings where we actually heard from the drivers as well as companies as measures that they would like us to consider. And one of the concerns that was raised was by the companies that, in fact, they do their own inspections and ferret out individuals that are not complying with the city regulations. And they felt that by penalizing the company, it would always be counterproductive. So given that, we've allowed for companies to be able to reduce any fine for non-compliance if they help in locating any or ferreting out this fraud. We also looked at the smart meters. There's a number of cities throughout the country that use, quote, smart meters that allow for print receipt capability and have software and or chips that prevent the zappers or garage door openers conversions to allow for the acceleration of the meter rate. There's also a particular model that has a GPS component to it. We believe that by adding the GPS component to it, we will be able to independently and objectively verify the distance traveled and the charges, and be able to create a software program that will hopefully automate the review process of that and limit the report to those exceptions that exceed a certain threshold. We also, we believe that the timeline that we've laid out for them, 87% of the meters will be changed out by March 1st of 2007. There's an approximate cost of $200 to $300 per meter. One of the additional concerns raised by the NBC report as well as the commission hearings and the committee hearings was the complaints. As such, we looked at our internal process, and we've come up with a module that we're adding to our database of driver complaints that will be specifically about the complaints, and it'll be a more comprehensive manner. It'll list the driver, the company, the complaint type, the investigator, the date assigned, the date completed, the resolution, the disposition, and there'll be summary totals that we will make public. I think, in essence, we're looking for reestablishing the trust of the public in using this particular transit group. We're also working with our city attorney partner to prosecute any cases where there's sufficient information. We're working with the LA County Weights and Measures to recertify all the taxi cabs. As of August 30th, the last reporting deadline from the county, we have been able to recertify 690 cabs out of the over 2,300. We're also taking additional test rides that we are comparing with our own taxi meter to verify the rates being charged. And once we have our completed investigation, we'll be reporting back to the appropriate committees.
Great. Thank you, Robert. And again, I want to send the message that a majority of our taxi cab drivers follow the law, do their job, but it's unfortunate that we have some unscrupulous ones that have taken advantage, and this is to address that particular issue.
There was one important detail that I omitted, which is in the NBC report, the vast majority of the cabs that are shown overcharging are not Los Angeles franchise taxi cabs. They belong to other cities or are bandit cabs. And as such, the program that the council recently approved of DOT working with LAPD is going to help in that arena.
Thank you, and you're right, and we are, I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the numbers, there's something like we have 3,800 taxis in the city, is
We
that?
have over 2,300 cabs.
2,300, and then we have bandit cabs, how many do we?
Well, it varies depending on who you speak to, but it may approximate that number as well.
Yeah, and so that is, again, something that we hope to educate the public about, which ones are real cabs and which are bandit taxi cabs, and to use our new system of utilizing LAPD overtime hours to assist us in the bandit taxi cabs.
In addition, the department recently hired a public information officer, and that'll be one of the first assignments that they'll be working on, is to get that message out.
Great. As you know, that's one near and dear to my heart, that PIO that's going to help us get a lot of information out to the community. Colleagues, I would ask you to support this today to send the message that there is a zero tolerance for any instance where someone is taking advantage of one of their customers in a taxi cab. We are going to send a clear message in Los Angeles that there is that zero tolerance. We also will be looking, I know Ms. Hahn and Mr. Wiesar and Mr. Rosendahl, we've all been talking about also the taxi cab drivers and some of the other things that we are going to be looking at. A motion was introduced to have that discussed in our committee and to address some of the concerns on that level. So I think it's a good thing. I always say with a crisis comes an opportunity, and it's a good thing that we're having these discussions, not only about cracking down on those unscrupulous, but also looking at the plight of those, some of those who are trying to make ends meet as taxi cab drivers. So just, I guess, that's a precursor to us having more discussions about supporting our taxi cab industry in Los Angeles and making sure that we all feel safe and supportive of that industry as well. Thank you, Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you. We did have one speaker card. I heard that you wanted to move
Yes,
to
would that be
reopen
okay?
that.
Just
Sure.
one person can
Just
move.
before Ms. Hahn and Mr. Labonge, if we can ask Martin Shatukian to come forward in 2 minutes to address the
Thank
council.
you very much.
Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. President and honorable council members. My name is Martin Shatakian. I'm president of United Independent Taxi and United Taxi of San Fernando Valley, representing 460 taxi cabs and 700 active drivers, and also 2 out of 9 franchises in the city of Los Angeles. First, I want to thank LA City Council, Transportation Committee, Taxi Cab Commission, and LODOT for helping us to improve the taxi cab industry and bringing public service level to higher level. And according to my knowledge, I have to also inform the City Council that since May 2006, when this sting operations started by NBC, only less than a dozen cabs were discovered with tampered taxi cab meters, and I'm pleased to announce that none of them are United Independent Taxi cabs. And I'm here to ask the council members not to be influenced and not make a judgment because of few individuals are dishonest and not following the rules. Meanwhile, I have to informed the City Council that recently Taxi Cab Commission and also Transportation Committee approved the taxi cab meter rate increase, and I'm asking take it into the consideration as soon as possible. We need your help, and we need this absolutely to keep service level up. It's very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Hahn, and then Mr. Labange.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank Councilwoman Gruhl for bringing this to our attention, and I want to thank the Taxi Cab Commission for taking up these issues. As the chair of the Commerce, Trade, and Tourism Committee, this is an issue that I've been looking at for a while, and that's the whole industry of our taxi cabs and what that means to the tourism factor in Los Angeles. I've been intimately involved with understanding the working conditions of our taxi cab drivers, particularly as they work in that holding lot at LAX, and we've listened to a lot of their concerns about how their conditions haven't been as good as they could be, and we're trying to address some of those. We know the Commission has approved a rate increase, and I think it's going to come to Council maybe next week, and I know myself I am supporting that. We need to make sure that the drivers are making the kind of a wage that will support them and their families. So we're doing things to address the working conditions of our taxi cab drivers, which we haven't done in a long time. But on the flip side of that, there is probably nothing more disturbing to any of us when we hear reports of taxi cab drivers who are overcharging the customers, the constituents. I just came back this summer from trips to Italy and Croatia. And when you're an international visitor, there are so many things that you're worried about. There are so many things that you're trying to navigate. The language, where you're staying. And the last thing you want to worry about is when you get in a strange taxi, you want to have some sort of faith and trust that they're charging you the appropriate amount of money and that they're not taking you for a ride. So I know that that is what people feel when they come to Los Angeles. We're just beginning to see an increase in tourism after 9/11. We're wooing people to come to Los Angeles, and our taxi cab drivers are the face of hospitality. Many times you're the first person that an international visitor has interaction with, and you are the person they're trusting with their life, their safety, their baggage, but more importantly, they're trusting you that you're charging them a fair amount. So we will have no tolerance, and I agree with Councilwoman Gruhl, zero tolerance for taxi cab drivers who are ever found overcharging our customers, and we know it is not the majority of them. But I think these anti-fraud measures that we're putting in place are good. I think that will make for accountability and transparency in the taxi cab industry, and you can then trust us to work to constantly improve your working conditions, and I think you're going to get a lot of support for raising your rates. So let's work together to make the taxi cab industry really that hospitality industry that can make or break a visitor's experience in Los Angeles.
Thank you. Mr. Labange is our next speaker, and then Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mrs. Hahn, for those comments, and thank you for thanking Mrs. Gruhl for her efforts in that. It's very important to do this, and as you said, those who drive and serve the public, taxis are ambassadors, so we should help them any way we can. I know a big issue, because I talk to drivers, is cab stands in the city. Are you taking any aggressive to try to improve cab stands in the city?
Actually, we are, Councilman. We're looking at relocating and or adding additional taxi stands next to metro stops to be able to allow those passengers that choose to use mass transit to be able to pick up a cab, get to that last point in their trip. We're also looking at other ideas include a taxi rank, which is something similar to is used in London, where you would actually be able to have a movable sign placed upon the activity center or the location that would allow for the safe access by cabs in certain locations in downtown specifically. So there are different things that we're looking at, but if there are other locations that would serve the public that we're not aware of, we would welcome those suggestions.
Good. So I want to work with you on that, work with the industry on that. I also want to see our Department of Transportation develop what I call red car taxis, where they are by the red line taxis, where they're by the red line stop, as you said, and they could shuttle people home, multiple people around. Or I know in some cities they have what they call downtown flyers that just go in the downtown grid, and people could walk out here and know for $2 they could get to 5th and Hill, you know, or whatever
That's
they
something
can.
we would want to look at. We're discuss with the industry about a flat rate for downtown. I think that's
Right.
a really good idea, and we would like to
Right.
pursue that.
And I know in some cabs they have a picture of the mayor of the town. Said if you have any problems, call the mayor. I don't know, what do we say in the back? Because it's been a little while.
We have the 311 and/or the complaint hotline for DOT. The cab companies also list their main number, and then we try to work together as a partnership to be able to discern if there's a pattern among the complaints.
Right. And finally, in closing, in hearing Ms. Gruhl and Ms. Hahn speak, I'd like to ask maybe if I know Ms. Hahn in the tourism industry and your committee there, if maybe you could have a taxi cab day and get all the drivers to get orientated a little on what is so important, which they already know probably, but just to get LA Inc. involved in the Tourism Bureau, and because they're ambassadors. They're the ambassadors to many people, as you said. So if you could look at that, Ms. Hahn, I appreciate that, Ms. Gruhl. Mr. President, I thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. And our next speaker is Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make sure we know what we're noting and filing here. Could you rattle off what the recommendations were? Rules of, you know, that there's 6 of them. Hold my time. So that people know what we're talking about.
The recommendations were basically to change the rules to eliminate any fines in lieu of penalties. In other words, they would be nominal fines, would now be replaced with 3 to 5 day suspensions. We would allow for companies to reduce any fines for non-compliance with assisting in locating and ferreting out any fraud. We are going to be mandating the smart meter installation, which will allow for print receipt capability as well as GPS. We will increase the capability of our own internal complaint investigation process to provide more transparency and more timely resolution to those particular complaints. We'll be working with the City Attorney's Office to identify any of those cases where we would be able to file for fraud and/or other crimes. And we will continue to work with our county weights and measures partner to be able to recertify all the meters in a timely manner. And we're also going to be doing our own internal fraud investigations, if you will, by doing test rides undercover. And part of that includes working with LAPD as part of the anti-bandit cab program.
And will you publish all these so every taxi driver knows this, puts it in their own brain? And
Yes, we will do that. We will work with each of the companies as well as the driver groups to be able to identify what measures we've taken place and why we've taken them. In fact, we are holding quarterly meetings with the drivers to be able to be more open about our communications. Oftentimes, a lot of the drivers don't appear in the business company headquarters, and as such are not aware of the current situation within the DOT regulation industry.
What did you think of the LA Times piece?
Well, it's difficult to it's difficult to defend, and to the extent that the information we provided, we specified as being a preliminary number without, it doesn't really a scientific investigation given that it's a small sampling size and that our investigation was not yet complete. So we felt it was a little premature to release that data and to provide the headline that it did.
Yeah, because there was only 30 people, right? And they said half of them were...
There was 30 test rides that were performed, and 15 of those were slightly out of the threshold. But again, the 15 that were out of the threshold, there may have been traffic conditions that we were not necessarily replicating at the time we did our own test ride. There may have been different times of the day that that particular route was crowded, and therefore the driver may have taken, quote, a circuitous route, but in essence, delivered the passenger much more timely. So that's something that we would not have been portrayed in the way it was.
Just a quick update. Remember we said police on overtime could deal with non-official taxi cabs. How is that going?
We're currently meeting with LAPD representatives to formalize the plan. We're looking at the different areas of the city that have been identified as hot spots for both bandit cabs, out-of-city cabs that are franchised by another city, as well as limousines that are acting as taxi cabs. They are regulated by the PUC, and they have specific guidelines which they're supposed to follow. Unfortunately, because of business conditions, some of them have chosen to act as cabs outside the law, and quite honestly, without LAPD, we're not going to be able to make a huge dent.
I just want the taxi cab drivers to know that we're supporting them with this project because it's their business that's been at stake with bandits, right?
That's correct, sir.
And when will this go into effect?
The bandit program, as I indicated earlier, we're working out the details. Part of it is going to is contingent upon the assessment to the taxi companies, which will then pass on the increase to the public. We're looking at either mid-November to somewhere around the holiday season, begin the actual day-to-day operations. These are some of the administrative details we're working out with LAPD as far as the transfer of funds.
Many cab drivers have talked about the price of gasoline. It goes up and goes down. Some people think after this election in 3 weeks it'll go back up again. Who knows what the story is? But they wanted the flag drop to include more and then maybe go back. Any sense of where that's going?
Well, as was mentioned by one of the previous speakers, we do have a report that's going to be forwarded to council for consideration of an increase to the meter rate. And one of the recommendations that we're making in that report is to allow for the authority to be extended to the commission to make adjustments within a certain percentage. This will allow for more timely updates, either up or downward, based upon the taxi cost index. We're also proposing that we look at the taxi cost index every 6 months as opposed to once a year. And we believe that those particular ones will be able to hopefully deal with the problem in a more timely manner and be an equitable adjustment to all concerned.
I want to thank you very much for your detailed presentation to all of us right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other council members wishing to be heard? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'd like to introduce some special guests that we have here from Korea. We have a delegation of court clerks that are here. Young Jin Ko, Min Seok Park, Young Tak Seok, Airan Song, Pil Lee Dong, and Young Soo Tak, who are visiting here to visit us. We welcome you to council chambers. It's great to have you here, and thank you for visiting us. Our mayor and 2 council members are in Korea right now as we speak, so we are visiting your country as you're visiting ours, but want to thank you for being here. Please give them a round of applause and welcome them here. They're court clerks visiting to learn about our court system here, so thank you for being here. Next items, we have a number of items that have been called. I believe 12 is next in the queue, Mr. Clerk, is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Sachs, I know that you spoke on one item. As per the city attorney's instruction, we have 6 minutes total, so I wanted to give you the courtesy of, you have about 15 other cards in here, to choose which 2 of those you'd like to speak most about, because there's 4 minutes left in your ability. So do you want to choose which ones and come? Okay, do you want to just come forward and speak on all of them then? I'm sorry, sir, then we'll call you forward on number 12, and that will give you 2 minutes on that one. Okay? Come up, sir, I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Without having my timer on, if I'm a total of 6 minutes allowed,
Yes,
if
that's
I
right.
use less than 2 minutes on each item, will my total accumulate?
Mr. City Attorney, can you clarify that?
Yes, pursuant to my admonition earlier, he could divide it into 1 minute increments, no less than 1 minute increments.
Okay.
No less than 1 minute?
So that would give you 4 items you could speak on, sir, if you wanted to only use a minute of the 2 minutes you're given. So would you like to start with number 12? Okay, number 12, please.
Yes, I'd like to start with number 12. This item will be voted on, and we have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 council members in attendance, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 available to vote. That means we'll have 4 non-votes for this item. Thank you.
All right, that will be 1 minute. We have also on number 12, no other public comments, so we can please open the roll on 12, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item is item number 13. We have cards from a number of people. Mr. Sachs, would you like to come forward first on number 13? You pass on that one? Okay. Mr. Zuma Dog is next on item number 13.
Yes, first of all, I need Landry's supervisor here on the premises. We have problems again his first day back. I require a supervisor because I'm being harassed by the police, and everybody here knows that he's wrong and I'm not, because we haven't had any problems since he's been on vacation.
If you could please address number 13,
All right, so right
please.
now we're talking about, and we have a shortage of good city employees because of this. Right now we got a war in Iraq, and it's draining good people to be LAPD, and they're overseas. What this does, it's salary benefits received by city employees who are activated by the armed services to assist the United States with security operations. Provide city employees of Los Angeles who are activated to the National Guard. Basically what they're going to do is they're going to make sure that people who are taken from the city to fight wars and be operated in the military, that they're not going to lose their benefits, they're not going to lose their money, they're going to cover the gap between the city money and the military money. So of course we're going to pass this. And I'd like to remind everybody the war in Iraq is draining fundings for qualified officers, like people like Landry could be replaced by people that could do their job. So bring these fine citizens back. LAPD needs more police. Bratton says so. So does Zuma Dog.
Our next speaker is Michael Hunt on this. Mr. Hunt, going once, going twice. Mr. Hunt, would you like to speak on this item? Your card is before us.
There, if I'm not correct, these people get their city salaries for protecting the borders. Mr. City Attorney, can you please help me out here? Why not?
We've got the CLA and others to assist you, sir, with any questions afterwards, but we'd love to hear your public comment right now.
Yeah, but if it is correct, I do support them receiving their city salaries if they're protecting the United States of America. Thank you. My name is Michael Hunt.
Thank you. Next, we have Matt Dowd on this item.
Yeah, before we start, I'd just like to ask the city attorney to give me, just tell me where my time stands, because I may waive consideration of this matter.
Sir, please,
depending on my
go.
time. No, I
You have
haven't
2 minutes to
started
go.
yet. Can you tell me where my clock stands?
Please give your public testimony, sir. I think you've spoken once before.
Okay, well, I'll completely waive consideration of this item. Thank you. So
All right,
reset the
that will
clock.
close our public comment on this one. If we can please open the roll on this item, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. That is approved. Next item, please.
Item 15 was called special for a card from the public.
Okay, I'd like to take item 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 together if there's no objection. Mr. Sachs, if you'd like to address any of those items, you can now come before us. Mr. Sachs, would you like to come forward and address us on any of those items? This is now the time to do that.
Thank you. I'd like to address all those items. We have 12 members of council, and we are getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Will you please address the substance of these
6,
matters, sir? If you can please
vote on
address...
the items is the substance to the council. And since we're getting non-votes on these items...
Sir, we've clarified that for the record, and if you'd like to submit something to change the law on that, that's fine. But right now, we'd like you to address
What
the
I'd like to submit, sir, is
content of the
that-
matters on items that are before us, which are 15, which is an item on the removing of
Please hold
REAP
my time.
properties. We'll give you the time back, sir. 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19 are all on REAP properties, if you'd please address that. 20 is on the resolution of future street vacation there, and then 21, 22, 23, sorry, we're not on 23, but the other two ones that are before us are identified in the
And
agenda. Thank you.
I would respectfully say to the city council that a vote on these items is necessary, and I'm addressing the vote on the items. And if there's and if the city council allows a non-vote, that's my point that I'm making. Thank
Mr. City
you.
Attorney, would you clarify that one more time for the record? And each time that's brought up, please.
If a city council member is in chambers or within earshot of the proceedings in the back room, then he or she is considered to be present, and a non-vote is considered to be a yes vote.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else who wishes to be heard? I believe on 21, Mr. Reyes, you wanted to address that? We'll recognize you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Colleagues, in these two bills, we'll have essentially the first building blocks of how we bring back a new form of revitalization in the city. We're talking about how open space can become an anchor for new development. Back in the 70s, it was shopping malls, strip malls, but in this day and age, it'll be open space, it'll be park space, it'll be natural habitats that essentially will build scenarios where a new tax base could emerge. A new tax base can emerge from the brownfields, can emerge from the underused industrial lands, allow us to create cottage industries that are focused on ecologically sound, environmentally sensitive products in areas that are hurting for park space and green space. I want to thank the community, all the stakeholders, the Friends of the LA River, all the advocates who've emerged over the past few months. I want to thank Gary Moore for his strong advocacy, his stewardship in Public Works, Department of Engineering as a director. He's been incredibly supportive. I want to thank the mayor for his stewardship, his energy, but most of all, I want to thank the council for believing in this dream. We started this 6 years ago. As a committee, we've come together, we've hashed out, we've learned what other cities have been able to establish over time, and we are now building on principles and goals that I believe future generations will enjoy. One of the key factors here is that we've literally jumped a generation of funding from the federal government. With both bills from Boxer and Roy Allard, we've been able to enjoy their championing an effort that they believe in. And so we are literally moving in a pace that no one expected. With the finalization, revitalization plan in the next few months, we will have a regional perspective on how different nodes throughout the Riverway could stimulate a whole new environment and ease the tension that many of us feel due to the pressures of density, the lack of infrastructure, and actually have our waterways bring back life to the city the way it has actually created the city. So a new frontier is upon us. With your support, we can continue. And as we begin to build the links between how we recycle, how we look at industrial lands, how we create mixed uses, but most importantly, how we harness this riverway in such a way where its natural beauty can come back as we penetrate the walls, as we prioritize flood control, but more importantly, create a whole new face with a linear city along the riverway. So for that, I thank my colleagues. I look forward to working with you as we continue in this journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Reyes, and thank you for your leadership on this. Ms. Gruhl is our next speaker.
Thank you. I know we have all the items up here. Are we just talking about the river one right now? Okay.
You can speak about any of them, but 21.
Any of them? Okay. Because there were two. One, I want to support Mr. Reyes and the River Project. I miss not being in the committee anymore, but I'm an honorary member and support. We read about the mayor taking a trip to, was it in Japan? There's Korea, sorry. Korea, where it talked about the river there and the importance and how it has dramatically changed that city. And I think in Los Angeles, we can see the same types of things happening in this kind of resolution on the federal level that I know you've worked very hard on, Mr. Reyes, is critically important as part of that puzzle, I guess you'd say, in putting together a river plan in Los Angeles that's going to demonstrate that we can make changes and don't have to go with the status quo and business as usual and make that change. So thank you. And I wanted to also stand up on the item related to item number 22, which supports the naming of a ridge in Studio City after actor and entertainer Gene Autry, whose home lies below the chaparral-covered ridge, which is pending before the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names and the U.S. Board on Geographic Names. Gene Autry has been an incredibly his life has made a difference in Mr. Labange's district. The museum there and his wife Jackie, who has really also been a leader on a number of issues. So I wanted us to go on record supporting this ridge. It is also, and I think Mr. Weiss's district is near there as well, the ridge that we're doing, but would ask for an aye vote on that item as well. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Any council members wishing to be heard on any of these items? If not, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you. Those are approved. Next items.
Item 23 was called special for a card from the public.
Okay, we've got 2 cards on that. Mr. Sachs, if you'd like to come forward, and then Matt Dowd. Okay, Mr. Dowd is our next speaker.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll take a minute. Mr. Rosendahl, you're right. People really are starting to listen to me. I just did my Channel 7 interview on the gun issue, gave them the people's side of the story.
If he could be asked to stick with the topic, please.
Oh, thank you, Mr. City Clerk.
Item 23,
City
it's on
Attorney.
Proposition 1B, please.
Okay, yeah, this is all good stuff. Highway safety, traffic reduction, air quality, and port security. Big issues with Janice Hahn. So that's why I'd like to see her keep going on in the position, because she's big on all of these issues. And it's unfortunate that the governor vetoed your other bill, you know, but what are you going to do? Sometimes we fight to keep these things going, but so I'm all in favor of this one. Let's give this a unanimous, a $19 billion yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is from the council on this, Mr. Rosendahl, and then Ms. Gruhl, and then Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, this $20 billion, if we read the book, folks, and viewers out there, please read the book. I know many of us are going to be discouraged by all these bond measures, but these are critical bond measures, and 1B is a critical bond measure. The monies will go to get the beginnings really happening in Southern California for mass transit infrastructure. Frankly, it's going to cost us $100 billion minimum over the next 10 years to get our system in place that we don't have that will alleviate some of the gridlock. The governor and the mayor worked on this together. In fact, both of them clearly told me that in conversations. And we can get in Southern California anywhere from $3 to $5 billion of this to really start moving forward on a lot of major infrastructure positions. So I know many of us out there are concerned about our tax bills on our property bills that are coming in right now. But if we don't do this, we will stay in gridlock for the rest of our lives. We have to vote yes on this bond measure if we intend to take ourselves to the next century of transportation, which is mass transit in the area. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ms. Gruhl?
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Rosendahl, for introducing this motion. As you may recall, the mayor and I, and actually Janice Hahn, went up early on in the conversations they were having about 1B and the importance of ensuring that it included public transportation, because the original draft did not have anything with public transportation. And this morning, Janice and I were on opposite sides of the city today, but both talking about 1B. She was before the California Transportation Commission, which I think she'll chat about, and I was before Senator Lowenthal's committee here at the MTA, testifying about the importance of 1B and what would be included for the city of Los Angeles. And this is an important piece of legislation that's on the ballot in November. It is one that could bring millions and billions of dollars to our region to address the transportation issue and traffic problems that we had. Mr. Lowenthal asked me this morning, Senator Lowenthal asked me what if I had to pick one project, and I didn't take the bait. I listed several, including Expo Line and the Valley Orange Line and the Subway to the Sea and the Green, all of those this morning, saying each of them were very important. But we talked about that this was the foundation of where we needed to go. It was a long time coming. We have neglected not only our public transportation, but our roadways. And the fact that if you have, in my district, Coldwater Canyon, which I get emails all the time that I share with Mr. Mr. Weiss, Coldwater Canyon, if there is a pothole that has come in that's sometimes bigger than something you just go fill, it causes a traffic jam. So this money will also go to repairing our streets in our communities. And so this is important that we go on record supporting 1B and remind the voters that this will mean some relief to our traffic congestion and our street problems, and be the first step in trying to make our city go in a different direction than it has in the past with public transportation. So thank you for introducing this motion.
Thank you. Mr. Parks?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to rise and support this, but I'd like to see if we could just add one friendly amendment that we specifically identify the Expo line as being given consideration for some of this funding. Although they tell us the $640 million assures us of getting to Culver City, no one really agrees with that. Plus, we know that there's a couple of stations and a lot of issues around the stations have not been addressed. So I'd just like to add a friendly amendment that we plug in specifically the Expo line as a consideration for those city funds that are forthcoming, particularly dealing with light rail systems.
There's no objection to that? I'm sorry. Ms. Gruhl?
But I said when I testified this morning, when he asked me for one project, I wouldn't give him one project. So I think we should make sure we include north-south. I mean, that we talk about some of the things that are really important. We talked about the Gold Line, Green Line. So I think those that we've taken some position on before. I don't know how to amend what you said. I know you want to mention just Expo Line, but I want to make sure we're also talking about some of the other projects. Is part of that.
Okay. If there's any other specific ones that people want to spell out, please let us know. A friendly amendment needs to be accepted by the entire body, so if there's any objection, it's not. But if there's no objection, we'll accept Mr. Parks' amendment as a friendly amendment. Mr. Rosendahl?
What Ms. Gruhl said is part of that, because frankly, we're looking at 5 or 6 major mass transit infrastructures.
Maybe what you guys can do is make the list and make sure somebody articulates the entire list, so we'll get it specifically on the record, not just the
that would be great.
The Expo line, but specific articulation.
Great.
So we'll wait on that. We'll accept the Expo line, and we're open for more while we're listening to the debate. So anybody can stand up and make those suggestions too. Ms. Hahn.
Also the Rose line. So just
right.
Never heard of the Rose line. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm glad we are considering taking a position on Proposition 1B. I was also this morning testifying before the California Transportation Commission down in the harbor area. And I like to remind them that, Californians spend more than 500,000 hours stuck in traffic congestion on our roads and our highways. And in the harbor area, the international trade industry is literally bringing traffic to a standstill. At America's port, which I like to call it, because close to 48% of all the trade coming into this country comes through Los Angeles and Long Beach. It is America's port. And as we grow, and that is projected to triple in 2025. We have 14 million containers coming right now. That's projected to triple. And while every one of those containers represents commerce and represents goods movement to the rest of the country, every one of those containers represents risk to our health and to our security and certainly to congestion. Prop 1B contains provisions to help us in all 3 of those areas. $1 billion, if Prop 1B passes, will go to reduce harbor-related diesel emissions, which is a huge source of cancer, not only for the harbor area, but 15 miles inland from the port. $100 million, which is not enough, will go towards port security. And I will tell you, if anything were to happen at that port, besides a huge loss of lives, it would impact this nation's economy and the global economy. We must have more money for port security. And then $2 billion, which is the Trade Corridor Improvement Fund, which is what I testified this morning on, will provide money for related infrastructure and rail improvements. We need more on-dock rail. We need more near-dock rail. The best thing is if that cargo comes off the ship, gets on the rail, and gets to the rest of the country where it's needed. one of the things that I think is really important is the $1 billion to cleaning up the air. And we have projects that are ready to go. One of those will be retrofitting of those dirty old trucks that come in and out of the harbor. Someday, if this passes, someday, if they appropriate the money correctly, every truck that comes in and out of the port complex will be a clean truck. That will reduce more cargo-related pollution, which we know is responsible for premature deaths. It's responsible for asthma in our kids. It's responsible for 1 million days of lost school for our kids. So that's really important. I'm going to give a shout out to one project, which I hope gets articulated and gets put into our package, and that's the SR 47. Which is a project-ready project designed by the Alameda Corridor Transportation Authority, of which I am the chair this year. And that is a truck expressway, which will take our trucks directly onto Terminal Island and directly off of Terminal Island without driving on our freeways, without driving through our communities of Wilmington and San Pedro. That project alone will take 700,000 trucks off of the freeways, which means we don't have to compete with them and they don't have to compete with us as we're driving to and from work. That project alone, I think, is one of the best goods movement projects. And I will say, what's important about 1A or 1B is that it improves the infrastructure to move traffic, to move goods. You know what, folks? Environmental regulations, strict environmental regulations will not drive away business from the ports. Our ships will not come to Los Angeles, not because of we're instituting environmental regulations, it's because of landside congestion. They want these goods to be delivered to Los Angeles and then moved quickly. That's why this is so important, and I hope we take a position in favor of this, and then I hope everyone in California will see the urgency of 1B for moving goods. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. Our next speaker will be Mr. LaBonge.
Hello. Thank you very much. I want to just make another friendly amendment. We work very hard, and I support the Expo line, but we work very hard on the 101 corridor. And the 101 corridor, for those who represent the valley, all are part of the valley, is a very important issue, and it's not called out for. So as a friendly amendment, Madam Chair, that we add the 101 corridor from the 4-level interchange to the county line.
Is there a second for your motion? There doesn't appear to be an objection.
Is there no objection?
May we have a second?
Everybody supports it? Do I need a section? Second? Second from the...
Second from Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Smith. All right.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Motion as amended. Our next speaker will be Mr. Garcetti.
Yeah, I threw the 101 corridor.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and thank you, colleagues, for your strong support of 1B here. A couple things in 1B. This is for the folks that are watching. It's helpful, and you can get this off the MTA website. Statewide, this is a $19.9 billion bond. About $12 billion of that will be competitively funded, so different places in the state will compete for that. And then there's formula funding of about $8.1 billion. So LA County's formula share will be about $2 billion of funds, and what our competitive share is up to us, so depending on how competitive we are and how well we do. And so the competition, we think, might yield more than $3.5 billion for LA County. So we're really talking about almost $5.5 billion of this money, which is 20 total, coming to Los Angeles and Los Angeles County. It would be a huge boon to us and to improving the quality of life, reducing the pollution that we have, et cetera. An important part of 1B is also that it encourages building up around transit hubs, where the buses are, where our subways are, our light rail is, to make sure that we're building housing close to where transit is, so that people don't have to get in cars for their trips. They will remove pollution from our air, take toxics literally off of the street, and put them, well, get them away forever. Another thing, too, that related to that, that's why 1B and 1C, which is the housing element of this, which seems to be pulling at the top of them, of these infrastructure bonds, work so well together. We need 1B to pass and 1C to pass together in order to do the construction of affordable housing and workforce housing near where the transit corridors are. It's also one of the reasons why Proposition H is so critical as a piece of 1C. 1C can only succeed if we have all of these pieces in place. When housing is built close to where people's jobs are, that reduces pollution, that reduces traffic. I know I said earlier that it was $2 billion. It's actually $1 billion, and Proposition H leverages $5 or $6 billion of money. I don't know many government programs that do that. Similarly with 1B, you get the leverage of a local match with a state and federal match, so that we're not asking voters to pay for every single dollar, but actually a dollar they put in will attract $2 or $3 more. It's a good deal for the taxpayer, it's a good deal for our constituents, but more importantly, at this moment in Los Angeles history, we have to build again. We have to build the housing, we have to build the transportation, we have to build the infrastructure that one of our public speakers mentioned before, and this is the opportunity to do it. It's done in a way that allows us to actually reduce the car trips, reduce the pollution, and at the same time have a more livable state and a more livable city. So I very strongly encourage not only our support of 1B, but the state's support of 1B to be able to do that as well, and we'll certainly be voting on that, and its concomitant measure which supplements that, the 1C housing piece, which will make 1B successful, in Prop H, which does the same thing here locally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garcetti. Ms. Gruhl?
Wendy.
Ms. Gruhl, you're our next speaker.
Oh, no, I spoke already.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Just a footnote, the Public Works Committee, which I chair, is going to be putting together a task force once this is approved by the voters, and members of the council, the mayor's office, and others will be on the task force, where we will take Mr. Park's idea, Ms. Gruhl's ideas, and others, Ms. Hans and Mr. Labange's, and we're going to sit down and we're going to come up from our perspective as a city of Los Angeles, what our priorities are as a city with the pot of money that will be there for infrastructure. Everybody will be included in it. We're going to vet it through the process of the Public Works Committee, and so that will be a joyous day once the voters out there vote yes for this. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosendahl. There are no further speakers in the queue. Madam Clerk, would you please open the roll? Or, I'm sorry, Mr. Clerk. We're going to vote on two items, and I think if you would, Mr. Clerk,
Madam
please
President, I
review
believe
them.
all the amendments were considered friendly, and that was to include consideration of the Expo line, SR 47, and the 101 corridor.
All right, so it sounds like it would be acceptable to vote on those in one package. All right, thank you then. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Item 24 was called special for cards from the public.
Our first speaker is Mr. Matthew Dowd.
Thank you. First of all, if the minutes of this meeting are on the videotape, then can I ask everybody if they're going to make any kind of comment to speak into the mic, because those comments are all lost, especially Mr. Parks here just recently. I couldn't hear that. It didn't go out on the mic, so it's not going onto the tape. Item 24, Make a Difference Day Peace March. See, Make a Difference Day just happens to be my birthday, October 28. Send me a card or PayPal, Mr. City Attorney, a couple of dollars my way. I'm broke, I'm homeless, I'm out of work, I've lost my income, my livelihood down at the beach. So I might go to this event, though, because it's a Make a Difference Day, peace, and community softball game. And then I see the word softball, and I look at the motion, and it's from two of the hardball guys in here, Padilla and Cardenas, because they're the two who made that shifty move on Ed Reyes the other day to switch around that vote on the river communication. But boy, I'm so far off topic, Mr. City Attorney. I think you're just trying to burn my time so I don't speak anymore at the meeting. But I'll keep going now that I'm over my minute. So everybody, let's get out there. The Make a Difference Day Peace March and Community Softball Game, October 28. It's right around Halloween. Let's hope there's a full moon as well, and then we can all just have a really good party all night long. Thank you, Mr. Labange, for the Freddie Fender thing, too, yesterday.
He's completely off topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Arnold Sachs.
Thank you very much. Make a Difference Day. I would like to read something to the City Council. This is from agenda from Manhattan Beach City Council welcomes you. Welcome. By your presence in the City Council chambers, you are participating in the process of representative government. representative government means you vote.
Mr. City Attorney, can you
Well,
give
this
us
is
an
make a
opinion on whether
difference.
this
A
is on
vote,
the topic or
I'm
not?
discussing.
If the
a
council
vote makes a
president
difference.
determines that he's off topic, he can be ruled out of order. So
Mr. Sachs, if I could request that you stay on topic and speak to the matter before us right now?
Madam Chairman, I am speaking regarding the vote on the topics that have been held before the City Council, and that's part of the
City of Los Angeles.
the City of Los Angeles Council. And make a difference, a vote is what makes a difference. Except in the City Council chambers, a non-vote makes a difference. That's what I have to say. Also, I'd like to show something to the City Council. This is from the LA Times, an article from Sunday's paper, from George Skelton in Sacramento. Think it doesn't matter if you don't vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia.
There are no further cards on that item and no speakers in the queue. Mr. Clerk, would you please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Next item, please.
Item 25 was called special for a card from the public.
Our first speaker will be Mr. Matthew Dowd.
Okay, this looks like my final minute for the day. It's a shame because I wanted to get to the Wesson Weezars, the dog and pony special events, only because I like the sound of that Wesson Weezar. It sounds like a medical condition. Gee, that's a bad Wesson Weezar you've got there. The Internet Latin Awards on October 13. This is a special event. It sounds a little discriminatory because it sounds like it's only Latin people can qualify for this Internet Award. I think it's got something to do with popularity on the Internet. And, yeah, Greg Smith doesn't qualify for that sleeping video that we had up there. That was getting a whole heap of hits, and I don't know why they passed that over for an award.
he, again, is off topic.
Okay, let me get back on my final 2 seconds, and this is...
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Mr. Zumadog.
How much, hold my time. How much time do I have, Mr. City Attorney, for the rest of the day?
I'm not your timekeeper.
Okay, well then I'll just keep talking. Just as okay, I'll keep talking until I run out of items. This is for the Internet. It doesn't matter, Latin Awards, whatever awards. It's Internet Awards, and it's $2,000. I think the money should be put to youth and other things. Internet Awards, come on, that's frivolous. It's not in the community interest. How is an Internet Awards, please tell me, in the best interest of the community? Also, coming up on the next one, I'll talk about that real quick. I'll talk about that separate. But it's a time to call out the Jack Weiss memo. Thank you so much. From January 2005, I'm very concerned about the budget implications of waiving significant costs for groups that may not be entitled to these waivers. In particular, whenever the city waives a fee, it makes a donation to the group. Support should only be given when the event's open to the public and serves a community purpose. Jack Weiss, thank you very much. Something good you said, January 15, 2002, and Zumadog still talking about it in 2006, y'all. Weiss has asked for analysis of the total cost of special events in the city, including lost revenue and expenses for police services. Put this money back for youth people. That's what we need. Give it to the schools. Give it to something important, not Internet Awards.
Thank you very much. There are no speakers on the queue and no further cards. Mr. Labange?
Question. Could anyone hurt the microphones if they yell into the microphones or hurt, not to discourage free speech, Mr. City Attorney, but I don't want to see city property be damaged.
I don't know about the technicalities of the equipment. However, Rule 12 states that no person in the audience at a council meeting shall engage in disorderly or boisterous conduct, including the utterance of loud, threatening, or abusive language. So council can rule that the loud language is out of order.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Open the roll, please. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Item 28 was called special for a card from the public.
All right. We have two cards on that item. That will be Mr. Zumadog again and Mr. Michael Hunt.
Tom, if you're serious, you're getting to the comedian game, right? I'll say it much more quiet this time, okay? How's this? This is for a relative, the Los Angeles Philharmonic concert, $5,000. It's $4,600 for Los Angeles Philharmonic. Nobody cares about Philharmonic music. It's not a nonprofit group. Let's go back to the Jack Weiss memo. Concerns of possible inappropriate waiver of fees and costs for events that may not need or deserve financial support from the city. I'm very concerned about the budget and the implications of waiving significant costs for groups that may not be entitled to these waivers. In particular, when the city waives a fee, it's making a donation to the group. The support should only be given when the event is open to the public and serves a community purpose. And I think we got way more significant purposes in the community interest than a Philharmonic concert. And please, why was this January 2002 and it hasn't been addressed yet? Bring this to a committee. I like showing up at those committees. This needs to be addressed. Put the money back into the community. Come on. Then when somebody really needs it, like the little old ladies, the money's not there because you just paid for the Los Angeles Philharmonic. I hope the microphone
Thank
ain't
you very
broken.
much. Mr. Michael Hunt is our next speaker.
Yes, at this time, I would like to, the $4,659, I think they need to give it back like the Baptist Temple. I don't think that the harmonica people need no money at this particular time. I'd like to waive the rest of my time to Matt Dow.
There's no waiver of time there. There's no card in here for Mr. Dowd. So if you waive your time, you're giving your time up. Thank you very much. There are no speakers in the queue on that item. So Mr. Clerk, would you please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Item 31, called special for a card from the public.
Our speaker will be Mr. Zuma Dog.
Thank you for calling Mr. Zuma Dog. I like it. It's more professional sounding. It makes me sound more important. This is for the Crenshaw-Dorsey football game. That is sponsored by LA Unified School District, LAUSD. I say we have the LAUSD versus the mayor on this football game. If LAUSD wins, they get control of the $20 billion budget. And if not, then LAUSD does. So this will be a good time. A football game to settle the beef between the mayor and LAUSD. The winner gets control of the over $20 billion facility money. Zuma Dog for City Council.
Our next, let's see, there's no further cards on that item. No speakers in the queue. Mr. City Clerk, would you please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next item.
Madam President, items 35 and 36 were being held on the desk for substitute motions, and those have been circulated.
All right. We have one card on that item. Mr. Michael Hunt.
Yeah, this is about the temple again. Bethlehem Temple and them giving their money back. I think, you know, that they're stand-up artists. If they didn't need it, they shouldn't have took it anyway. Special event, Bethlehem Temple Church. Although I would love to see a church get some extra money so that they can do the right thing in the neighborhood.
Thank you very much. There are no speakers in the queue on this item. Mr. City Clerk, if you would open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next matter of business.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Posted and referred. Okay, that should be it. Are there any?
Madam President, there are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Gruhl requests to be excused Friday, November 17th for city business. That meets council policy.
Okay, great. I'm sorry.
Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused Friday, October 27th for city business. A motion is required.
Moved by Mr. Labange, seconded by Ms. Hahn.
Councilmember Parks requests to be excused Wednesday, November 29th to leave at 11:30 for city business. That meets council policy.
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Rosendahl.
And Councilmember Cardenas requests to be excused Friday, November 17th for city business. A motion is required.
Moved by Mr. Parks, seconded by Mr. Garcetti.
And that does clear the desk, Madam President.
Are there any announcements? Mr. Labange.
No, I just got to, again, mention, since all members are here, it's the great Chuck Berry's 80th birthday today, and want to send him greetings, the greatest artist who ever played rock and roll. Chuck Berry, 80 years old.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. Mr. Parks.
Chair, I'd just like to announce that the LA Urban League is having its strategic plan meeting at the Urban League Milken Family Literacy Center at 5414 South Crenshaw, and it's this evening at 7 p.m. Also, the Leimert Park Neighborhood Coalition is having their monthly meeting on Wednesday, October 18th, 7 to 8:30 in Leimert Park at 4305 Degnan. And also, our own CDD is putting on for the community a capacity building workshop at their office at 1200 West 7th Street. The first meeting will be citywide training schedule will be October 20th, and they'll be dealing with grant writing, fundraising, and the new rules. And so any community-based organization certainly is encouraged to go there. And then also this weekend, in joint effort with Mr. Wesson on the 10th District, the 100.3 The Beat, the Sentinel, and the Mothers in Action would be putting on the Taste of Soul on Crenshaw Boulevard, and where they'll block off the street from MLK to Coliseum on Crenshaw, and there will be a number of community vendors. And then my final one is just like to announce that our Chamber of Commerce in Crenshaw will be having its meeting, and Mr. Herb Wesson will be our guest speaker at the Crenshaw Chamber on Thursday this week.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parks. Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Madam President. Tonight at 6 o'clock, the Public Works Board will have a meeting with City Service Fair in the 11th District at my West LA office at 6 o'clock at Felicia Manhood Senior Center at the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and Corinth. And I say to my constituents in the 11th District, this is about potholes, this is tree trimming, this is the alleys, this is the basic work of constituent services. You'll get a good sense of Public Works. Please come to this public meeting and get involved. Thank you.
Ms. Hahn.
Well, that reminded me that tonight in San Pedro at 6 o'clock, our Department of Rec and Parks Commission will be holding a public meeting in San Pedro at Bogdanovich Recreation Center. This was regularly scheduled 2 weeks ago, and then they had to cancel due to a quorum issue. So tonight, all those who are in the harbor area and have issues about our parks, please come out tonight at Bogdanovich Recreation Center in San Pedro to make your concerns known to the commission that makes all the decisions.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Any other announcements? All right, members, please rise for adjourning tributes. Ms. Hahn, I believe you have a tribute. Ms. Hahn.
Thank you. Members, I'd like us to adjourn today in memory of John Real, who passed away on October 12th in San Pedro at the age of 89. John was born in Wilmington to parents that had immigrated from Spain. He was a lifelong member of Mary Star of the Sea Catholic Church. He grew up in the grocery business when his parent owned Real's Market on Gaffey Street. An attorney, he worked as the manager of the Fishermen's Co-op Association. He later served as legal counsel to Star-Kissed Foods and was asked to join the organization in 1955. He retired in 1983 as the CEO. He was married for 65 years to Jane, who passed away earlier this year, and they were very well known for giving back to our community. He's survived by his daughter Linda, sons John Jr. and Mark, brothers Manuel and Emil, 8 grandchildren, 6 great-grandchildren, and numerous other friends and family. Visitation will be held on Friday at McNerdy's Mortuary from 4 to 8. A funeral mass will be held on Saturday at 9 a.m. at Mary Star of the Sea Catholic Church in San Pedro.
I'd like to second that motion.
That will be seconded by Mr. Labange. Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Labange?
Thank you. Members, I think we should stand and adjourn in memory of Corey Lytle, the New York Yankee, who tragically lost his life in that air crash, as well as Tyler Stanger, who was his pilot. They're both from the San Gabriel Valley. Local star at high school was Corey, but also a very young aviator in Tyler. Also, I ask we adjourn in memory of Barbara Merrimack, who was a great educator for 24 years at John Marshall High School in Los Angeles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd ask that we adjourn in memory of City Councilman George Stevens from San Diego, born 1932 in Junction City, Junction City, California. At the age of 13, he moved to El Centro with his family. He worked his way through school. He mastered in his political life the mobilization of churches and as a political base in 1960s as a civil rights leader. He basically prided himself in advocating for parks, libraries, street repairs, jobs, grocery stores, and other amenities in his district. He served from in Council District 4 from 1991 to 2002. His viewing will be at 4 p.m. to 8 on Monday at Mount Airy Baptist Church in San Diego. Services will be Tuesday, October 24th at the Bayview Baptist Church in San Diego.
Mr. Parks, would you like all members on that?
All members, would be
All
great.
right, thank you.
And also would like to adjourn in memory of one of our local heroes. She was born Janelle Grimes in 1938 in Texas. She moved to Los Angeles, attended Jefferson High School, later was well known and very famous as Janelle Hawkins, one of our local singers in both the pop and the gospel singing. At the age of 4, she began playing in the churches. The first church she played at the age of 4 was at 46 in San Pedro. She recorded her first album entitled Moments to Remember in 1962, and her second album in 1963, The Many Moods of Jenny. Janelle traveled extensively, promoting her albums was on such shows as Ed Sullivan, Dick Clark, Dick Cavett. She played with numerous bands throughout her musical career and had her own band through most of her career. And her career expanded 64 years. Memorial services are pending.
Mr. Parks, I would like to second that as well. Thank you. Our next tribute, none on this side? Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. City Clerk, there's no further business, so the meeting, call the roll, please. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.